Today, let's talk about cutting. We'll start with the basics. Hacksaw. This is a pretty simple hacksaw, but not the cheapy ones. I hate those little cheap ones. The blades always twist. I picked this one up at an auction used and a box of other stuff. It's a lot easier to tension the blade. Worth spending the couple bucks extra for a decent hacksaw. I prefer the rake of the teeth to go forward. As you'll see, I'm able to put a lot more oomph in when I lean forward than when I pull backwards. I'm able to wrap my hand through, kind of through and over, kind of latch over the top like so. Lean my shoulder in and just push and go. I've cut a lot of things with the hacksaw. I used to cut a lot of bolts before I had the horizontal bandsaw, but the hacksaw gets the job done on this basic stuff, but I don't like doing much more than plastic or real basic cuts these days. With the hacksaw, I've got better options for that. So on those jobs that are too big for the hacksaw, we usually move over to the bandsaw. This isn't precise, but I can get a pretty good angle if I take my time in setting it up. This is a little 4x6, similar to what Harbor Freight, Northern Tool, and those companies sell. This one actually was built in 1981, so this same design has been around for a long time. Definitely one of the tools in the shop I want to upgrade. I want to go to just something a little bit bigger, and I'd like to go to a mitering style where the saw blade and motor pivot rather than pivoting the rest for the material. Cutting some pretty big, that was loud. Cutting some pretty big stuff today. This is some 3x4 11 gauge that I'm using for some stands for the little lathe and the CNC mill. I'll show you how I throw one in here and then I'll start the cut. Probably throw you on a little fast forward because this takes a while to cut, and bring you back at the end. I got lucky recently, my local steel yard here in Denver, a place called K&K Surplus. They sell new steel, but they also sell a lot of surplus. They had a bunch of these 2x3 11 gauge pieces, all cut at 30 inches, which was actually a really convenient length for me since I had a bunch of cuts between 2 foot and 30 inches to make. They're also really easy for me to handle. A little bit of surface rust, but not in bad shape at all. This stuff brand new probably would have cost $6 or $7 a foot, and instead it only cost me $6 per 30-inch piece. So that was pretty good savings. Right now I'm set up to do a 45-degree cut on all these. I'll show you on another video how I'm welding them together. Instead of the 30-inch pieces, I'm cutting them at 29.5 inches to the longest point. I like to put the seams on the insides of my legs. It's just my preference. You won't even see it after it's painted, but I have some OCD like that. Dropping the tape measure doesn't help. And by tape measure, I mean yardstick, because I can't pull out a tape measure, let's face it. Zip tie in the drill hole and put a zip tie in the end of my yardstick a long time ago. That way I can retrieve it. I don't have to wait for somebody else. This isn't, like I say, the most precise saw, and then I'm welding them together. So there, as long as I'm within a 1/16, I'm okay with it. I know about what it needs to look like on the far end of the blade, so I drop my blade down. Take a look. I got way too much hanging through. I got about 2 inches that I need to bring back this way. Make sure it's sitting flat. Just tighten that up lightly. And now I hold my yardstick against the back side. You won't be able to see that measurement here, but I measure from where the blade touches the metal on the far side here to the end, and oh, that's within 30-second. I'm calling that good. Now, like I say, this does take a little while. One thing I've learned with this saw is you definitely do not want to help it. If you try to just get a little impatient, put a little pressure down here on the end to just make it go a little faster, pops the blade off the pulleys every time. I can't get the blade back on myself, so then I'm waiting on somebody else to come and help me. So I just let it go and do its thing, let gravity do its work. One thing I want on a bigger saw is the hydraulic feed control. This doesn't have that. It's got a spring on the back side that you can adjust the tension on. Like I said, it's an okay saw, but when I'm doing a bunch of cuts, it takes a while. One other thing I will show you on this one. They make these sticks of cutting wax, and those really help extend blade life and actually make the cuts better. So I use these frequently on both this, the vertical bandsaw, and the chop saw. So these are cheap. You pick them up on Amazon, McMaster, anywhere like that. I mean, they're like 10, 12 bucks, but they last a long time. And basically you just kind of put them into the teeth of the blade as it's cutting, and it cuts. So this, I tighten that up, hit the switch on. When it's done cutting, the saw will automatically shut itself off. This will take probably 10 minutes or so to cut. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it on and then send you guys fast forward and catch up at the end. And there you have it. One more piece cut off. That was my last leg. For my second table, nice smooth cut, ready to weld. Now we'll move over to the vertical bandsaw. You can hear a little motor running in the background. That's the three-phase rotary converter. I'm currently running this saw and an air compressor off the three-phase. It's a lot cheaper to pick up three-phase equipment used at auctions, and the converter works pretty well. So I apologize for that extra noise. This is a Rutland brand. It's a Taiwanese brand. I believe it was made in the 80s. Traded an old punch press I'd bought that I'd never used to a guy even up for this saw. Pretty stout machine. I don't use it super often, but it's really nice to have when I do. Speed's adjustable, has a blade cutter and welder on it, although I'm still using the blade that it had on it when I bought it. So without further ado, just gonna cut the sharp tip off of this. Speed's adjustable. I just crank a knob down here on the side. I want to speed it up depending on what I'm cutting.
cut everything from light sheet metal, plexiglass to 1-inch thick steel bar on this saw. I haven't had any issues whatsoever. I don't know if you can hear how much faster the blade gets running. Like I said, nice machine, and really stout, solid cast iron machine from the 80s.
For making cuts in tubing, both aluminum and steel, as well as some thinner, 1/4 inch and under aluminum, even steel plate. I've done some 1-inch thick steel plate, but you have to be real careful not to gum up the blade. I use a metal cutting chop saw. I've actually heard of a lot of guys having good success with the DeWalt mitering saws too, but I picked this up years ago. I had this in my apartment. This is probably the loudest, most dangerous thing I had in the apartment, but the only modification I had to do was to the handle to remove a safety on it. You have to hold down a button to turn on the trigger, and so let's see, you can't see the trigger there. Let's see if I can get the camera to tip up. You can see the little box right here on my hand. That's a new switch box that I added, and I just bent a tube and put that in place of the original plastic handle, so I have lots of leverage on it, can pull it up and down. This thing makes smooth cuts, makes a big mess, real loud, but it's a lot cheaper and easier to have than a cold saw, and does some pretty precise cuts. You can adjust the angle of the vise on it and get some miter cuts, and we even have built jigs and cut some pretty complex angles on it before. So it's a pretty useful tool. I use it about as much as I use the two bandsaws. So I'm just gonna chop the ends off a couple pieces of aluminum here that we notched that I'm just gonna keep around for another project. Hit the switch up with my thumb. I have to extend the lever, and then once it's on, it's on. I can let go of it and it'll just keep running. And Shazam, Bazinga, all that good stuff. That's the end of the tube. Nice flush cut. Nothing, no burr to really speak of. Little tiny one on one edge. It would take 2 seconds to knock that off with some Scotch-Brite, or probably my Scotch-Brite belt on the disc sander belt sander combo. So, chop saws, they're worth having around. Blades aren't cheap. They're about $100 a piece for blades. So you definitely want to take care of them, but they're a nice tool to have around. From time to time, I run into jobs that a hacksaw is not right, a bandsaw is not right, the chop saw won't work. I don't use a circular saw, don't want to cut off my own leg. But along with the drill that I used in the drill video, I picked up this Black & Decker little VPX lithium-ion sawzall that actually takes not sawzall, but jigsaw blades. So it's good for things that aren't super accurate. Like I have this big flat panel here that I need to cut, but I need to cut it right in the middle, and so I don't have enough throat depth on my vertical bandsaw. Definitely won't fit in the horizontal, no way to fit in the chop saw. So this will get the job done. It's not the best saw in the world. It's not the most powerful, but it gets the job done on these little things. Also works pretty good on limbs and stuff outside. I use it for that as limbs. The only thing that's a pain is there's a switch on the top that you have to push before you can pull the trigger, but that latches the trigger on. So once it's on, it's up and running. You just got to make sure you don't drop it on your leg or you might see blood. So here we go. I want to make sure I got a solid grip on this beast, because I'm going to be reaching out there quite a ways.
Lost the trigger. The trigger is definitely the worst part of this particular saw. Not really the trigger, the stupid trigger safety. One of these days I might tear it apart and take that out. You know, safety last. Well, you get the point. That's about a 2-inch cut. I'm gonna continue the cut and not waste your time. But yeah, this is just one more saw in the arsenal. The more tools you got, the more things you're able to do. That's what I've learned.